There we go. Well.
Did you push record?
Yeah, it's going. Welcome to Contra Gentile Season 2, Episode 5.
If you didn't know the form of the heart, what are you pushing up your ass?
I made bruschetta and it's really good.
Truth will essentially just reveal itself to the
Right,
audience.
Did we say that
Yeah.
I'm predisposed to like Sagittarius?
Quit being a fag.
5? It's 5.
5. No more puns. You stopped at the
Oh, I know.
number.
Season 2, Episode 5. What's the... I think it just got too complicated.
A whole weekday.
A whole week of...
Yeah.
If you
Week-
add the
week-
number of seasons and the
week
number
of
of episodes in the
weekdays.
season, that would make 7. And that's the days. That's how many days there are in a week. Okay.
Yeah, anyway.
It's fine. The wine.
Today's wine is an Aquinas North Coast Cabernet Sauvignon, vintage 2018.
Do you want to show the camera in front of your face? Nice. All right. Yeah. We changed the table orientation, so now Anne-Marie is the wine pourer, because Jeremy and I are a million miles away from each other. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to toast this far away?
We could reach.
I know.
Some arms.
I don't.
Here you go.
Yeah, at Costco it was listed for $15, but then when I bought it, it rang up as $9.
Oh, nice.
So they're really not charging very much for Aquinas. It's kind of on the cheap end. All right.
Well,
All right,
cheers.
Cheers.
Cabby,
Yeah, it is.
normal.
You don't seem too pleased with it.
I was trying to think of what to say about it.
You don't have to say anything. So we're in the new space.
Yeah.
85% complete.
Yes, yeah.
But it's weird. It's finished enough to be in it now.
I know, finally. I'm exhausted.
We're just
Good job,
traumatized.
guys.
Yes, I know.
What would you say? I did 8% of the work and you did 92.
Probably rather.
And then, but I did all the driving for stuff mostly. So,
Yes,
So
yeah.
we'll say
And-
12% grant.
And the part that you hated, which was, the bricks.
Oh, I hated cutting the stupid brick.
Looks good though, Grant.
Yeah. So in my mind, I did 80% of the work. It's fine. So today, do you want to talk about old people right off the bat?
Sure.
Or do you want to segue? into
We just save that one for a little bit later.
Okay.
We had a little more drinks in us.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll segue into it. We'll cap it
Not
off.
the elderly.
And, so it was 4th of July Sunday.
Yes,
We had a
yeah.
lovely time with the lovely pig and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was your birthday yesterday.
Yes.
Jeremy's birthday yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So you had a lot of celebrating to do.
Yeah, I know. In the midst of working. At least I didn't do anything like those for those 2 days.
I know.
So,
I was going to be
That's good.
pissed.
yeah. I shouldn't say I did nothing, but I did very minimal.
Did you guys close for
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
closed, yeah.
good?
But there was just some stuff online that I did, just some sales and everything, so. But yeah, other than that, it was a pretty good birthday.
So you're 39 now.
Yes, yep.
So you're old,
Wow.
but 1 year away from ancient.
Yes.
Next year is ancient. You're just
40 is ancient.
Yes. If it were 1300, you've lived a long life.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
Full
I
and
know.
complete life.
I know, yeah. Honestly,
Yeah.
that goes back to the old people thing. Okay, fine. Let's talk about it a little bit, all right? I really think people live too long nowadays.
Yeah.
Right, they literally are becoming like their body is decaying in front of
Oh,
us.
thank you.
They begin to smell like mothballs, around the age of 70 some. Yeah. It's like you see it's like, well, why are we sustaining life so long when all they end up doing is like shitting themselves? They forget things, they don't know how to work things. It's just like I don't understand really the virtue of prolonging life just for the sake of prolonging it. you know, and I think that's what is a bit
Because
awkward for
you
me.
do see that some old people are fine.
Of course I do. Yeah,
Like
it
some
isn't.
old people
It
are-
isn't. I mean, like my mom. I think she's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, she's like almost
But she's
80,
functional.
80 years old, right? She still could kick ass. She breaks her ankle and keeps walking. She's not. You know, it's like it's pretty awesome. But it just seems as if there's almost an arbitrary, just non-rational pursuit of sustaining life longer than they would have if we didn't have modern medicine. You know, it's the same thing with really, obese people. It's the same thing with smokers. The same thing with anything. It's like we begin to sustain life, but otherwise they would just die. And sometimes maybe it's just good if they just died.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We'd be better off dead.
Yeah, I was just like,
We would all be better off dead.
yeah,
if they
so
died.
would they.
Yeah.
I think I'll be miserable if I was shitting myself and I had to go. I'd be like, just kill me. You know, why are you guys sustaining my life? I don't want to live anymore.
You have to wipe your ass wiped.
Yes, I'm like, I am done. I had a fun life. It's been good, and let's move on. I guess I don't understand that desire to continuously live when you are decaying before your eyes and before everybody else's eyes. It's like literally that's what you're doing, and then we give them medication. We continue the life going. That if we just cut it off, it'll be like the natural state of death. Which
Remember
simply
Joe?
happened.
Was it Joe's idea where after you reach a certain age, there will be stores for you, and you're only allowed access to technology that
Yeah, yeah.
existed at the time that you became that age? Like if you became 70 years old in 2005, you're only allowed to use technology that existed up until 2005 and nothing newer.
Yes, yeah.
I think it'd be funny.
Yeah, because even when I'm thinking myself, like my grandfather lived to 100.
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to live that long.
Yeah.
And if I did, if I outlived everybody and my actions were no more consequence to my family or whatever, I'd probably just do whatever the fuck I want at that point.
Yeah.
Which will probably be pretty scary. You know? It's like if I'm driving, somebody's pissing me off, I just run into them. I don't give a shit. You know, I see a cop, I would just want a high speed chase just because I want to see how far I could go. And just drag him along for a long time.
That's when your family would grab you and put you back to bed.
Put you in a home.
Yes, yeah. But that's what I mean. If my existence no longer
You're a
mattered
liability.
to them, let's say the kids have a family and everything, it's like, okay, my existence no longer matters.
It's like Clint Eastwood and Gran Torino, the big phone with the big phone numbers. And they're like, hey, you can't see anymore. Dad can't read. You make friends with a bunch of Asians.
Yeah, that was a good movie. I really like that movie.
I know, me too.
One of my favorites.
I just love Clint Eastwood.
Should we have a
Yes,
Gran Torino movie night?
We should.
Yeah, I love
Sometime
that
soon.
movie.
Maybe Thursday.
Yeah.
Not tonight. We started recording
No, it's
like
way
an
too
hour and a
late.
half.
I know. Yeah.
We recorded almost 2 hours late.
Hey, but it's going. You know,
It's true.
it's beautiful.
What do you think informs your perceptions on the elderly and their value?
Great.
Interacting with them. You know, just to any extent. Like you see somebody past the age of 65, you see a decline.
Yeah.
They start reaching 80, you're like, holy shit, what are you doing still alive? You look.
You wouldn't. So you would not care if they just didn't leave the house.
Yeah. I mean,
Some people do just live that.
Right, but I guess even just for myself, why would I want to continue living when I know I'm decaying?
Yeah.
Well,
I
I mean,
really
like,
don't get it.
You don't really have an alternative unless you're going to kill yourself.
Or just not take the medication, just letting the natural
Oh
courses.
yeah, but you could live till 80. But like it's
Yeah, but most people start taking Lipitor and all these other things that help for them to sustain lives. I'm like, why? If the doctor say you have to take that, I'd be like, okay, no.
Some people chain smoke up until they're 90.
They do, I know, and normally those guys are pretty awesome. I mean, I was like, okay, I mean, honestly, have you ever met like a chain smoker that wasn't just alert and
my
just well-to-do?
Well-to-do.
In terms of their cognitive processes, you know?
My mother's. So my mom's dad was like the youngest of 14 Irish Catholics or something like they're. I think it was his brother Bob and his wife Sunny. She chain smoked, and I think she died at 96 or something.
Yeah.
Her tongue was like black and shriveled, like that bad, and she sounded like a banshee. Like her voice was not normal anymore.
Yeah.
She always talked like this the whole time.
And like, but she was awesome.
I know they tend to be, and they're like really quick-witted
Yeah.
still. They're not like walking around and be like, how do you work this thing? And it's like, holy shit, man.
You're a
Just
toddler again.
yes. It's
No,
like,
but that is what happens is you kind of revert back into this state where you're no longer, the patriarch or the matriarch of your
I know,
family, but
yeah.
you're like being humbled again before you die.
But in the past, you would just die, which was beautiful.
Right. Well, they're
It's
still
like, like
dying.
living
but
between like 55
it didn't
to
mean like people
65.
weren't pathetic in the Middle Ages.
I'm not saying that they weren't pathetic, but they didn't live long enough to be as pathetic as the 80-year-olds are now.
I don't know.
It's
I
like-
mean, like
Yeah,
there's
I
like all
mean,
these.
The degree to which old people are pathetic now is much higher.
I would say
than
than
it
a
used to be.
45-year-old or a
Yeah.
55-year-old, which was like if you lived in a city back in the medieval periods, people lived around like 45 to 55.
Do they live longer and outside of the city?
No, shorter.
Oh, why?
So like the peasants and the serfs and everything, they lived I think only like to 30, 35. So they lived really short. But the people that lived in in Paris and shit, they lived pretty. I think Aquinas lived to 48 or something. Even before that, during the Roman Empire, I think Augustine lived until like 70 or something.
That's old.
Yeah, that's old, right? And so yeah, there are people that lived a little bit longer, and I do think there are certain values in that. But it just seems like we're sustaining life for the sake of sustaining life, and I guess I don't know what that sake is for. It's like why, when you could simply die nobly and you could die with your cognitive process. You don't have to be like Biden up there. It goes. It's like it's pathetic. It's embarrassing. I'm uncomfortable watching him. I can't understand how uncomfortable he is being put out there that way. It's like why does that state of being have to exist? I really don't see why. I think there comes a certain time in your life where you're beginning to decay, and either medicine is going to continue your like breathing, it's going to continue your heart going, and so on and so forth. If you were to stop any of the medication, you would just die. And normally it is those people that I just feel like just stop, there was somebody that we knew where their mother was a chain smoker, and then she got I think emphysema. I don't remember what it was, but
One of those.
Yeah, one of those smoker things.
Mesothelioma.
And then
COPD.
she's like hooked.
COPD.
I think she was hooked up to a machine for like 3 years, 3 or 4 years. I'm like, why? Like the granddaughters had to clean her shit off of her, take her to the bathroom, bathe her, and continuously do this stuff. It was like, I would hate to put my grandkid through that, let alone my own kid.
Yeah.
I don't want you to be. No.
What's your take on this?
Just let
Do
me
you feel
go.
similarly?
Yeah.
So like being pathetic
I'll find it
is
for
the
you, but,
prerequisite for the value of your life, like whether or not you're able to contribute. Babies
I mean,
shit
yeah.
too, and we have to clean up for them.
There's a really
Yes, but they're growing.
there's a really
So they have potential.
Yes, yeah.
What if we knew that they
while
weren't
you're
going to live past 5?
Like if you just knew that you were.
Yeah, if
gonna
they
live
had
by
like
five,
some
that's
sort
fine.
of chronic disease, they had some sort of
Oh, right, yeah.
chromosomal abnormality, and you knew that they were going to die at 5.
Well, I don't know. I guess I still find that different because that is an abnormality. I think decaying, like your body physically decaying, is just a process
Is
of being
inevitable.
corporeal, right? While somebody getting cancer is more of a pathetic sadness of you don't get to enjoy life to the fullest, but we can make the last few years of your life pretty awesome. While I'm saying is like they can't even enjoy things. Especially the ones that are very decrepit.
That sounds like the same argument people use for people who are like, that pro-abortion people use for people who
I'm
are
not
retarded.
saying to kill people. There's difference. I'm not saying that we need to.
You're
kill
saying to
these old
not
people.
intervene.
Yes, I'm just saying that just let the natural state of whatever's going to happen. And I guess I don't see why that is not a virtue. It's like that seems more virtuous. It's like you're accepting death. As an individual, you're accepting. Okay, now's my time to go, and I've given what I did give. I lived the life that I did live. I'll be judged by God in the end, and I'm good. And then you rest in peace. And it seems like for the most part, it's almost like this fear of death. It's like this cultish behavior of I need to keep sustaining this so I could gain more corporeal pleasures. It seems like that's all it really is. and they want a vacation, they want to do this, even though when they vacation, they're horribly annoying. If you ever like lived in a high tourist area and you had to deal with them, it's like they're not even really enjoying themselves. You know, say, hey, Frankie, what are you doing that for? It's like, holy shit, just stop.
So there's a really good Katharine Hepburn interview. I think it's one of the last ones she gave. I'll have to find it. I don't remember what show it was on or who she was talking to. I think he was wearing a weird suit, but she's old at that point. I think she died in like 97 or something. I don't remember when she died, but he was talking because she's famous for like skinny dipping in frozen lakes, and she's like in her 80s, like doing crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But she was asked how she was handling being old, and she essentially was just like, "Oh, it's horrific. I hate being old."
Yeah.
And he said something like how she felt about nursing homes, and her response on TV was literally, "Oh, just gas them." She just was like, just execute them. They would be better off. It would be better for them if you just
that's
them.
what I think. Well, I don't think we should kill them, but I do think
backtracking.
I do think that is better for them just to take their natural course. Honestly, like that's what I would want.
It's unnatural to have large facilities where old people go to live until they die. That's
right. Well, because most time in history, you would just take care of them in your family.
Right, you would, and you
until
take
they
care
would
of them
die
until they
naturally.
die.
Yes, and you give them a good life towards their death, and you see them decaying, you see their mental processing, processes just going away, and it's fine. You take care of them, but it's like we're not even doing that anymore. What we're trying to do is just sustaining the process of decay and slowing it down to have more torture. That's what it seems like to me.
The what is it? What is it called? Expectation?
Life expectancy?
Life expectancy, sorry. Life expectancy is lengthening, but quality of life after a certain age is not improving.
Right, yeah.
So they're keeping people alive longer, but they're not any more functional after a certain age on average than they were.
Yeah, I think it's similar to the arguments of like for if someone gets in a bad accident and they get into a machine that keeps them alive. Like I don't really get that.
Lung.
Yeah, I don't get that either. It's like no, just they suffered a horrible accident. Maybe you would try to fix them for a few months. That's fine.
Do you remember the Terry Schiavo?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that was a huge argument that a lot of people were having.
That was huge. Yeah.
Yeah, they were trying to figure out. Is it ethical to just let them die? I'm like, of course it is.
Really, you're on that side of it?
For me, it's obvious. It's like
when I was little, I tried. I remember like that was like had like 24-hour news coverage.
I know it did. Yeah,
people were like standing outside her.
They did. Yeah.
Hospital room.
But and there was a lot of like pro-life people standing there, and this is why I don't call myself pro-life, because I don't think anybody has a right to life.
Oh, this would be a good segue into the rights.
Yeah.
So it was 4th of July on Sunday, and I think it would be appropriate for this. Oh my God, sorry. The headphones were making it sound a lot louder than it was, and I just have no control, so it's fine. It would be interesting to segue into a conversation, or I think it would be interesting to have a conversation about, or like a metaphysical discussion of inalienable rights.
Yeah.
And what you think about that, or what we think about that.
Yeah.
As a group, like.
Yeah, I mean, there might be a huge disagreement here because, for me, I think it's a ridiculous idea.
I think it's ridiculous as well.
That we have a right to life, liberty, and originally was property by John Locke, but then pursuit of happiness, which is correlated with property.
Is it a misunderstanding of what rights are?
I don't think so. I think it's a misunderstanding of God. It's because rights is something that can only be bestowed to you by a king, right? Mm-hmm.
Or as some kind of political body.
Whatever the body is. And so if you live in their kingdom originally, and then you're a serf, they gave you certain rights how to function within that kingdom.
Yeah.
And so the argument was, especially by Locke, was that that there are certain rights given to us by God, who is the ultimate king, and as the ultimate king, these are rights that lower kings are not able to take away from you. And so then the government is there supposed to protect the rights that was given to you by God.
God does not bestow rights.
Right. And
Right,
yeah.
but I mean, I thought the classical argument was that rights, not that they were from a political body, but they came from natural law.
Yes, but I also do think it's a misunderstanding of the natural law. It's not the same understanding of Aquinas of the natural law or Peter Abelard or Augustine or whatever. Their idea of the natural law was that God created it's more Newtonian. And so it's like God created a universe, and within the universe he created laws for the universe to function, and part of the laws that was in there are moral laws, which they call the natural law, which is derived from the way things function.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's a very Newtonian metaphysical understanding of reality, but for the Thomistic understanding, that's not what it was. Natural laws related to teleology. And so it related to that things that exist have a function, have a function that is innate to its what they call its nature. And so when Aristotle and Aquinas and Avicenna and all of them talked about nature, they didn't mean that which is instituted apart from human beings. And so that's like the Newtonian idea. Newtonian idea is that nature is that which exists, that was created by God, that man did not exist. And so whenever we talk about nature, we talk about, trees, frogs, dogs, or whatever, things that God created. While in the natural law, the traditional view of natural law was that anything has a nature. It doesn't matter whether it's man-made or God-made. And so a chair has a nature. And that we bestow the teleology, the function of the chair, through the carpenter who made the chair. And so so everything has a teleology, everything has a function, everything has the formal, the material, formal, efficient, and final cause, whether it's man-made or not man-made. And so the natural laws simply derive from there, that there are proper ways to use a camera, that there are proper ways to use a hammer, that there are proper ways to be a bee, that there's proper ways to be a dog, that the natural law pertain to anything, whether it was man-made or God-made. And so with a Newtonian worldview, it's quite different. For Newtonian worldview, things that are man-made are not natural. That there is no nature to man-made things. They're arbitrary in a sense. And
Is that
then
the way, like, nature refers to things that occur outside of the human will?
Exactly, yes, yeah. And that's a completely different point of view. So when you read Lockean ideas or the Founding Fathers' ideas of the natural law, it has nothing to do with 1,500-year tradition that came before that. It had everything to do with short 200 years that came after that. And so when you base it on that, of course, what does God become then? Then God becomes the high king. He becomes the king of kings. He becomes the king beyond other kings. And so if God becomes the king beyond other kings, and then his creation is natural. And if his creation is natural, then there's an order to the way the world functions. And so whether you're talking about physics or biology or morality, there's a way that the world functions that God bestowed onto it. So it's more of a divine command theory of things, that it was divinely commanded that, dogs or whatever behaved a certain way, or that humans behave a certain way, or that there's gravity or whatever.
Thank you.
And so once that's more of a divine command idea, there's nothing inherent in a thing anymore. It is only bestowed externally from God.
From God.
Right. And so from that's where the idea that then God bestowed rights to people. He bestowed right to life, he bestowed right to liberty, and he bestowed the right to property. Because originally what John Locke was saying is that whenever we contain something, it's our property.
That's not innate in human beings due to their
Only
purpose.
Only in terms of their relation to God. Right, and really the only way that worldview can function is understanding God in this way. And so when you understand God in this way, you think that therefore the lower kings or any political body is there to protect the rights that was bestowed by God. And so that understanding of natural law is not Thomistic. That understanding of natural law is very Newtonian. And so,
So the Thomistic view would preclude the idea or the belief that human beings have any sort that there's any sort of expectation for how human beings ought to behave to one another, what one man owes another man.
Right, yeah, but always be in tune with the way that things are inherently in their structure, right? That there isn't a notion of a Godhead bestowing rights. It's more that in its hylomorphic reality, there are things that are necessary to its nature.
Hylomorphic body and soul.
Yes, yeah, body and soul, or just form and matter in general.
And we're getting the mic just barely closer to your face.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And so since things exist hylomorphically, what Aquinas or what any scholastic philosopher argued was that in its hylomorphic reality, there are things that are necessary for its existence, as opposed to only accidental to its existence.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So
And
to its
right.
purpose or its end.
Exactly, yeah. And so accidental things will be like its color, that thing could change. But if, in order for a ball to be a ball, it needs to be spherical, and that is necessary to its reality. And so when you negate its spherical reality and you make it square, it is no longer a ball. It is things like that. And so it is different, because it isn't as if a God has bestowing rights. It's merely that in its hylomorphic reality, there are things that are necessary and things that are accidental. So things are contingent and things are necessary. I mean, contingent and necessary. Yeah.
So, I guess another segue. A lot of the conversations, like I know Jordan Peterson's always talking about it. Ben Shapiro's talked about it. People like all of the commentators I can think of have talked about the idea that like we teach people so much about their rights, but we need to teach them about their responsibility. Like as like a counterbalance, as if they are of equal weight on a scale.
Yeah.
When I would say the responsibility, quote unquote, as in like, I don't know if you could just say the responsibility you're talking about is like your responsibility to like manifest your nature as a man, or like I don't know really how you could sum it up easily.
Yes, yeah.
But like it seems to me that the responsibility, quote unquote, your nature or your teleology as a person is the proper way to say that.
Yes,
Precedes your rights in every way.
Right, yeah.
They're not balanced at all. That it almost, to say that like your rights or I guess those inalienable rights, or however you want to say it, as an American or as a person or whatever, it almost, because those are bestowed upon you by a state apparatus of some kind, or like a king or whatever, like a Congress or whatever, it almost implies that the state is equivalent to God, because the responsibility refers to your relationship to God, or being the good, your teleology, and that, and then is somehow equally weighed by your rights bestowed on you by the state.
Yes,
as if they operate in tandem in any way. And are not hierarchical.
No, and I agree, and I do think that understanding, or at least accepting the notion of rights, what that ends up normally doing is that it psychologically it makes you think that you deserve to live. Yeah. Right, and
I think that's actually antithetical to the Christian narrative.
It is right. Yes, it makes you think it's like I have the right to live. I deserve life. And then when you include the other two, I also deserve liberty, and that I also deserve happiness.
It's actually, you deserve none of that.
You deserve none of that, right? And so, from the Thomistic point of view, that would just be completely absurd. It was like, of course you don't. You deserve none of that. Life, it is in itself, is inherently a gift.
Yeah.
And, as a gift, there is a certain debt that we owe to God because we didn't have to exist. And if we didn't have to exist, we should be grateful and we should be thankful for any moment that we have. And from that, when we become miserable because of what the state or whatever else is doing to us, we're kind of being as petulant children.
Yeah.
Because we're saying that I don't like the life that you have given me, God. I don't like this. You've given me this gift that is life, and it sucks. because I'm being oppressed or whatever. And so I'm going to change it and instill my will beyond your will. And I think that is the psychology that normally comes about when you interpret the natural law, or when you present God and everything in that manner.
Yeah.
Is that all it does is that it presents to you a sense of ownership of the way that you have to exist. And so when this goes back to the thing like the argument for Terri Schiavo, many people that are pro-lifers felt like they needed to defend the life of her, because if not, they were contradicting their other principles, which they're correct in. Because if you are a pro-lifer, if you're saying that people have a right to life and people ought to live, then somebody who is on a ventilator that has the potential to exist, then we have the obligation to keep and sustain that life. And I do think that is a rational point of view, given the foundational principles. The reason why I didn't agree with it is because I reject the foundational principles altogether. Now, I would say the notion of rights, given to us by God, the notion of the right to life, I would say it's all flawed. I'm not anti-abortion because I'm a pro-lifer. I'm anti-abortion because I don't think people have the right to kill people. That's really simple. It's more of a negative thing, is that you don't have the right to kill people, because none of us have rights to anything. And that if you don't have the right to kill people, you ought not to do it, because then that's simply murder.
Right. Yeah, that's where I was getting hung up, was like, I mean, it's clear people have like an innate moral reaction towards unjust killing.
Right.
And so
yeah.
when you look at that, you can extrapolate from that. Okay, then because we have this reaction to it that says this is wrong,
Yeah.
then what you can conclude would be that, okay, it's good for people to live, or they have some sort of a right to life.
Right.
So
yeah.
that's where I was getting hung up on, like, because you can see the natural law kind of informs what not to do, and from what not to do, you can draw like, okay, so this is a standard of good.
Yeah.
This is a standard. This is a standard.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And my argument normally is, and this is why I say a true dichotomy is either you're going to argue pro-life or anti-life, or pro-abortion, anti-abortion. I normally argue in terms of anti-abortion.
Because
Are you anti-euthanasia?
Yeah, because I don't think you shouldn't kill somebody, and I also think it's cowardly. If the person wants to kill themselves, you go buy a gun and shoot yourself in the head.
it's because
So, yeah.
it's because the flip side, people in like, from a Thomistic viewpoint, you do not have the right to life.
You don't.
That's a bad argument.
Yeah.
You can say you don't have the right to life. No one has the right to life.
Right.
But you do not have the right to kill someone.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can rationally argue that.
Yeah.
Maybe not like in a kind of like rebellious, like adolescent way, like God, like saying to God, I have the right to live, but to other people, like, I feel like
no, it's
there's
you
no
don't have the
problem.
right to kill me.
Yes,
exerting.
exactly.
I don't have the right to life. That's
Right.
not. But you can.
Like,
I don't know what your hang up is.
Because I don't know what you.
Because I'm saying
Yes.
people don't have the right to kill other people.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the people who are killed have the right to life per se.
Yeah, I would say
They don't,
their
because
life
just
is,
as much as no one has
their
the right
life
to
is a
life.
gift.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful gift.
You don't have the
and
right
and
to a
and it's a
gift.
good gift, and we should proclaim the goodness of that gift. But the moment we make it to a right, it is no longer a gift.
Because it's saying you deserve it.
Now you're saying that you deserve to live.
That's
And I'm-
payment.
Yes, and I'm saying that's wrong. I cannot, in any Catholic theological sense, be like, I deserve to live. It's like, no, I don't. I pretty much deserve to die and be damned. That is what I deserve. And that the only reason why, if I ever rejoice in eternal life, is because of the sanctifying grace of Christ dying on the
And
cross.
we're
for me.
not saying you're wrong in your conclusion, because you're not.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I'm just saying it should be recognized that you don't have the right to kill someone.
Right.
They don't have the right to live. A child has the... It's not even that a child has the right to not be killed.
I wouldn't even say that.
Yeah, it's just like...
Because this is the hang up that many people have, is especially with theodicy. Because let's say this child gets cancer, right? It's a fault of nobody but God's. And then they normally blame God. They're like, God, why would you kill that kid? What the fuck is wrong with you? You're a monster.
So God didn't kill the kid.
Right. Or not even if he did, it was like, yeah, but he didn't have a right to live. And I think even in the problem of theodicy, it's very easily solved by understanding that kid does not deserve to live. There is nothing about that person that says he needs to live. He doesn't. Even if he only existed for 2 hours, that in itself was a gift. Even if he smelled something, he suckled on the mother's boobs for that little time, got that milk or whatever. That is already beauty. That is beauty manifest. That is the experience of the infinite in a very minute way. I would say, but that is good.
Is that a car crash?
I don't know.
Maybe.
Did we leave the sandwich board outside?
Oh my gosh, yes we did.
Okay, it's
Go
fine.
run.
Did a skateboarder hit the board? Out
Probably.
There or
It's
Do you want me
fine.
to run out there?
No, it's fine. I'll pick it up later. Yeah.
something?
It's too late. I can't kick his ass. He's probably already gone.
You think it was a skateboarder?
I know probably that or a hobo.
Okay, wait. So I'm tracking. So I'm following.
Yeah.
Nobody has the right to life, but also nobody has the right to kill,
Yeah.
Yep.
including yourself. You don't have the right to kill yourself.
Right. Yeah. I would say you don't have that right. I think that's kind of a middle finger to God when you kill yourself.
It's
you're like,
throwing the gift back in
yeah.
his face.
It's like, I don't like it. Fuck you. I mean, that's essentially what it is. It's pathetic.
Okay. Are there degrees of that?
No.
What do you mean? I guess I don't want to say no so quickly. What do you mean by that?
Well,
I like how quickly you are.
No.
No.
I mean, like stopping taking your medication versus shooting yourself in the face.
Like,
You're not
so
killing
old.
yourself if you
Yeah.
stop taking the medication that is artificially maintaining your life.
If you know that it will kill you, how is that not?
It's not killing you, it's allowing you to die. That's a different thing.
Yeah, I think that's different. Like putting a bullet in my head and just letting nature take its course, I think is different.
We're getting to the trolley problem thing again.
This is so
It's-
dumb.
Yeah.
Like allowing nature to take its course.
Yeah.
Like I could intentionally
Here.
like go on
So-
a walk or a hike somewhere that I know I have a pretty good chance of falling off a cliff.
A lot of
and,
people do
like,
take those kind of risks.
You know,
Yeah, they do take those risks though.
Yeah.
Base jumping, all that stuff. I wouldn't call those things sinful. I was saying that you took a risk and you're aware that you might die.
But the experience of having done it is
Right.
worth the risk.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no issue with risk.
You're risking your life to experience something. It's
Yes.
different than killing yourself.
then letting yourself.
No,
yourself
so
die.
it's the same. So can I
Yeah.
the trolley
Do you
problem
want
thing?
more wine? I don't like.
No,
the trolley
I'm
problem.
what? No,
Do you
no,
want-
no,
you
no,
don't
no.
want
You
more?
that's your
Do you
guys.
want-
I'm just using this to point because it's empty and I can do that. Oh, you know what? I forgot our ritual.
It's time for Pellegrino. I just want like a tiny drop more. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Pellegrino time. We can't not have this anymore.
Oh, I love the
It's
bubbly.
it's $2. It's like $1.80 something. I can't
Yeah,
not
yeah.
buy it. So the trolley problem is you see what are we gonna could we restate the whole thing?
Is this the one where you're like, there's
so
There's
many
five.
variations.
There's five
Yeah.
people. There's five people tied to the track. Yes,
So
and then
dumb.
you have the option to pull the lever,
Yeah.
diverting the train to kill one person instead of 5.
Right.
Do you pull it or not?
We already talked about this. We're like, we don't pull it because nobody wants to play
We
God.
talked about this. You weren't here.
Yes, I was.
I don't.
It was on the pod. This has happened before.
I don't think you were there.
I'm going to be a content moderator
I'm
right
pretty-
now and
yes,
say that this has been on a prior episode.
Okay. Yes, but we recorded it alone. You were
No,
not
I
there.
was there.
How
No
much
more
have you been?
arguing. Come on.
I was telling you, you were not there.
No, I literally was.
I don't
I will
think you
go
were.
back all day tomorrow at my boring job when I don't have anything to do, and I will find the minute and I will send it to you.
I really don't think you were there. But anyway,
What? I would
It's the
not
same thing.
know
It's
about
the
the
same
trolley
thing.
problem
Okay,
if
come on,
not
yes,
between
okay.
you two.
And
It's
Marie- and
retarded
Marie is there. Just
masturbatory.
let's accept
I don't
it,
like
okay?
this sort of stuff unless I hear
Yes.
it from you.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
No, that broke the ice. Now I'm feeling normal. I was feeling really weird and out of it, and now I'm fine. It's the same thing as like is not. Man, I had the point and then I argued. Now I lost it. Not. It's. I guess this I could just pose this as a question to Jeremy because he would know more than me. But inaction is not action. Is there any inaction that is action?
I would never call it action, but there are things that you fail to do that would be constituted as sinful.
So stopping your life-supporting medication, knowing that it will eventually kill you, that's not action. You're not taking...
Right, yeah. You are... It's hard to... I would say it's hard to say that you're not doing anything. You are doing something. You are...
Well, you're recognizing that which is.
Yeah, and you are acting to some sort, because if
but you are acting in accordance with nature, which is...
Right, yeah. I would simply say that...
By allowing your life to take its natural course, you are by
which
definition...
ultimately, that's what's going to happen. Like, if you... Like, for example, like, I saw my dad take his last few breaths, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, it wasn't as if I wasn't there. Like, I was physically there. You know, I saw him and everything. And so... There's going to come a point where you are sustaining life
that would not otherwise be
that would
sustained,
not right, yeah.
which makes you God, essentially.
Yes,
you are bestowing the gift of life to those who would not otherwise receive it.
And in the end, it isn't as if you're doing any good. The only thing that you're doing is
because you're not
allowing the heart to pump over and over again, putting oxygen through their body, and so on and so forth. But
so
you're,
can I formulate something? So in giving someone medication as an example, that would extend their life longer than it would otherwise be, naturally speaking. You are acting not in accordance with nature. You are defying nature.
Yeah, and I'm using that term in a very Thomistic sense.
That's what I mean. You are altering the
it's
natural.
Teleology.
Yes, you're altering its teleology. Yes.
Yeah, its teleology is to decay.
Yes.
And our bodies will decay. And so when we act against that, you're acting against its teleology.
It's the same thing as like flipping your penis inside out. It's the same.
Yes,
like you're undergoing some medical procedure to define the like natural law in some way.
Yes, yeah. I would say it's very similar to transgender.
Like sticking a feeding tube in someone's body that's non-responsive.
Yes.
In the vegetative state, that's defying nature.
Yes, yeah. You're not really sustaining life in a proper sense. What you're doing is you're going against its teleology.
You're defying God.
Yes. In the end, you're saying that
it's whatever flip side there is to murder.
Right, yes.
There's murder, which is killing someone, and then I guess the flip side would be sustaining life that shouldn't be sustained.
And so what I'm saying is that when you stop taking medication, what you're doing is actually fulfilling the teleology of your bodily structure.
Is there a point at which that would be more obvious? I mean, like, I don't know, like, my grandfather's 96.
Yeah.
For all he's, like, pretty dang functional for a 96-year-old. Like,
yeah.
And there are functional 90s.
Yeah, like I said, there are people that are that way.
Process is fine, but he is a lot older than, like, all of his peers are dead besides his wife.
It happens.
Mm-hmm. It's very depressing. It's alone. He can't go to mass.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he probably feels depressed. Is that a reason to stop taking the pacemaker out of your heart? Or?
I wouldn't say that's the reason to take it. I would say that's a consequence of extending life beyond its natural means.
My great-grandmother, who died, I want to say this, we went down February 2019. I think she was 102.
Yeah.
She was born in 1917, and she told me that at some point after it was like her late 80s, early 90s. Like all of her friends were dead.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, you're just waiting to die.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's
If it happens
a phase
naturally.
of suffering that you should go through.
You shouldn't go through suffering. It's not a
It's
not a necessary.
Sorry, I know
it's
that
not
you have a
necessary,
problem with that term. I think
No.
that there's
okay.
crosses in life that you just have to bear, and it's good for you,
You
to
should.
bear.
Yes, but not everyone has the same crosses.
What I'm saying is that cross is man-made. It's fine. But
I mean, like,
I
if
would
you're
say
not
that,
dying, if you're
Yes.
not
No,
dying,
yes, but-
We're not
my-
saying
yes.
those people who live naturally that long. We're saying people who take medication to
It's
sustain their
it's kind of like saying, for example, let's say that, like the child soldiers in Africa, they had to kill their own parents.
Mm-hmm.
Now for the rest of their life, that is a cross they have to bear. Fine.
Right.
I would agree with that. But that cross that they have to bear is not one that was given to them by God. That is one that they made for themselves. And I'm saying that a person that is like really old, living lonely and depressed because they chose to take these medications to sustain their life, fine, that is a cross that they have to bear, but that's a cross that they
what if
bear
you're
that
just
they made themselves.
living?
Yeah, if it was just
living, that's
natural,
different.
You're just
yeah.
like, you're 78 and
yeah,
all of your
That's
friends
a cross.
are dead.
That's a cross that God gave you.
Yeah, I would say
Right, so,
for my grandpa, my grandfather didn't take any medications.
Yeah, just live.
Yeah, he lived to 100 just
Even if
on
someone
a pure,
does have to
yes.
come and feed you, like, just live.
Yeah, nobody had to feed him, actually. He still was functioning.
My
That's
great
great for
grandmother
him,
was the
but
same way.
even if you did,
Yeah, I know, right. And I would say that if it was something that was simply given to you by outside of your means, that is different. But I think if you chose that, I would say no. Yeah, it's true that it's still a cross that you have to bear, but it is one that you made for yourself. And I do think there's a difference there. And I think we could always look at the outliers in which this is not the case. But I would say for the majority of the cases, it is the case that it is something that somebody made for themselves. It is not one that was given to them naturally by God.
I don't know. That's a rough one to decide, especially when, you're old, but you're not that old. Maybe
So-
in your 60s or 70s, you
Yeah.
have a heart attack, and they're like, we could put a pacemaker in, but you're like, I'm 60. I'm functional now, but I won't be, and this will probably sustain my life. Maybe.
I'm not even kidding. I honestly would probably reject it. I'd be like, it's okay. And I'll go home and I'll eat a steak, some bacon and eggs, maybe one of those breakfast sausages. And I'll be like, this is beautiful. It
And
is
then
good.
die.
Yes, and just
slowly
die. It's like, I don't understand why I would continue that. Then they put you on a strict diet. You don't experience the beauty of God through the food anymore. You're just suffering. You're lonely. Everybody around you keeps dying. And it's like you keep holding on. It's like, what are you holding on for? And then that's what I normally ask.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would probably decline it too. I've thought about that because I don't have health insurance.
Yeah.
And I've thought about if I get in a serious accident, I'd probably rather just leave me here on the side of the road.
Yes, exactly.
I'd
yeah.
rather die than have to.
There's a
be
sense
like,
of,
I'd rather die.
Yeah, because there's
But
a sense
that's
of
for me.
I don't think that's just for you. I think you're recognizing something true because there's a sense of nobility there. While the one who tries to sustain life is like they're.
I don't think it's nobility. I think I'm a little bitch and I'm afraid of suffering.
I don't think it's just that. I
And
think
I don't want to go through suffering.
I think it's that.
So if there's more suffering to be had, I'd
I
rather.
Check out.
maybe that's you. I don't know, but I also do think that for the most part it's that because for my case I don't care about the more suffering that I get. It's just that there's some pathetic nature to saying that no, I
Right,
want to
but
keep going.
Isn't that like a suffering for you to think about?
It's very selfish.
What if I were pathetic? You can't imagine how hard that would be for yourself if you were pathetic. That's a suffering for you.
That was made by me, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean it's kind of the same diff,
Yeah. Same diff. Same difference.
No, I get it.
I'm old. I turned 30.
That's like
I turned 39
term.
yesterday.
That's like-
same
that's
diff.
like
I have never heard same diff.
He's never watched Disney Channel in the early 2000s.
I was a 90s teenager. 2000s was already my college years.
Were you teaching it all at that point?
By 2005, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So you would have heard the young
I never heard
people say the same diff.
Maybe
It
they
first
said
appears
it,
in 1945.
Same diff.
Same diff.
That's from the 40s.
Well, then that fell out of fashion by the fucking 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
It was
No one's saying
it was
that.
definitely a 90s thing. I'm telling you, it's yes,
Same
it's been in
difference
movies.
was, but not same diff. If you watch something like Clueless and stuff, they never say same diff. They will say like as if,
As
same diff.
if.
Yeah. They start saying other things, but same diff. I don't think that was a 90s thing.
I'm just looking it up. I'm just curious. Weird. It's like a Valley Girl thing. It's like a
I know,
Valley
like
Girl staple.
I've heard same difference, but I've
No,
never.
same diff is like a Valley Girl staple.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Anyway, that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
We're just arguing a lot today.
No, but
Let's put on some boxing gloves and work it out outside.
But I don't even know where we left off. But yeah, I guess I just
Here, Jeremy, I'm going to translate for you.
Yeah,
I'm going
yeah.
to synthesize the argument because I don't think you're separating the right parts. Jeremy's not saying living to an old age is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying medically intervening in the natural process of decay is wrong.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Some people live to be really freaking old. But if you don't intervene medically and they just live to be old, that's fine. That's just living.
I guess,
But like, what's the hang up? I don't know what the like but is.
like, whose decision is that? Like, because it seems fine if it's your own decision to be like, I'm not going to do that anymore. But if you're caring for somebody else, there's like a moral factor in there. Like, do I just not?
Are you
give
I think
Granddad
you're
his
playing God a
pills
little bit
today?
if you think that you're so essential in the care of somebody else that.
Well, I mean, it typically does fall to other people when you get to that age.
It does,
and it
yeah.
is your decision to make.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
then that's on you. Like,
And the one who is taking care of them, I don't think they're doing anything.
I think a
wrong
proper
necessarily.
decision is do nothing.
I would say the one who puts it on to the person caring for them, they're the one that's doing something wrong. I honestly would say that I would never do that to any of my kids or my grandkids.
as long as you had control of that. But if you got in a traumatic accident,
And then they're the ones making that decision. They should know you wouldn't.
Yes,
want that.
they do know because I've said it many times.
Let me
die.
die.
Yes. No, I am not going to live that way. I'm not going to do that to them. Like that. That is
you're
just
not going to
horrible.
do it to yourself.
No, I'm not going to do that to my kids.
Yeah, I know, but
Make
like,
them clean up my shit? No. Live your life. You're young still. You could produce children. You could do whatever. Let me go. Let me die.
this
I
is
really
the
don't
thing
care.
that like maybe the thing that I am butting up against is like
You're hung up on something. Is the phrase.
okay. I think what I'm hung up on is like it might not be like the crux of the argument, but kind of like the sentiment throughout is that like your life's worth or what your life is worth is really largely tied to your productivity and your ability to like provide some sort of meaning to other people.
I'm saying...
That feels like a dangerous like line to walk.
And I agree with you because I'm honestly saying the exact opposite. I would say that our existence is completely worthless. Each one of ours. Nobody has actually worth in terms of productivity and everything. You could say in the immediacy, somebody who acts in accordance to, building a business, whatever, their worth is valuable for the building of the business. That's fine. We could talk about those things, but in terms of inherent value, I would say whenever we try to instill inherent value in terms of labor, in terms of function in society, in terms of whatever.
Right, that's where I have a problem with
Right, and I have a problem with that. I was like,
Is that not almost Marxist?
Yes, I would say that's not real worth.
Right,
There
I mean,
is-
is
there
it
isn't
the
anything-
classical idea is that like
The classical-
by virtue of the fact that you exist, that is a good.
Yes, by merely existing, existence is in itself inherently
Right,
good.
yeah.
Right, and so where does any kind of, if we want to put the word value, like the word value is very Nietzschean and whatever, but if we're all going to be using that terminology, I would say the only inherent value we have is the removal of the self in the act of love. And that's really it. Is that we are our most selves in our nature is when we sacrifice ourselves for the good of the other.
Yeah,
And
I would agree with you.
And in our sacrificing ourselves for the good of the other, we are what we teleology are meant to be.
Right, yeah.
Which is a mechanism of love, which is a mechanism of the Christ-like sacrifice.
Yes, yeah.
And so with that, when we try to sustain our lives and we say that I am not going to let myself go and I'm going to put the suffering upon you to wipe my shit, I'm saying you're being antithetical to the nature of what it means to be human.
You're being like,
Well,
as
then why didn't
selfish
Mother
as-
Teresa just gas people that she was taking care of?
She was taking care of little kids.
No, she was taking like lepers and old people and people with AIDS.
Some, but most of them were kids.
No, a ton of them were elderly people dying of AIDS.
Yeah, but
Well,
she's
so here's another thing. I had this thought.
yeah.
You're not saying, so your distinction between, or as far as medications go, you don't have an issue with people taking medication that increases their level of comfort. You have a problem with people taking medication that extends their life.
Yes, I'm saying that, but to go back to what she's saying, I'm never putting the blame on the caretaker. I'm putting the blame.
No, I'm helping because what?
Right, but she's saying it's like why didn't Mother Teresa simply gas the people? I'm saying the
Well, that's
one,
murder.
the one who is sacrificing themselves to take care of the old people, they're still living in accordance of love.
Yeah,
they're still living in accordance
but
of
they
self-sacrifice.
need people that are like.
But what I am saying is that the people who is putting that upon others, I'm saying they're not. You know, if you go back to the St. Francis prayer that is very, very well known, right? Where it says that I would rather love than to be loved, right? Rather comfort others than to seek comfort. And I would say Mother Teresa is a saint because that is what she lived. Those who she cared for are not saints because that is not how they lived.
That's BS.
How is that BS?
Because
How do you recognize any of the pathetic people who she? Do you know their names?
no, but I mean,
Do you know what they have done?
the reason why she's a saint at all is because there were people that were pathetic that needed help. If there was nobody
Okay.
pathetic that needed help,
Yes, I'm not
she
disagreeing with that.
couldn't. She couldn't give herself in love, and that's what it.
What
that's
I'm
what
sa-
it takes.
What
Is
I'm
we're
saying
all
is that
pathetic.
those in the state of pathos are not made saints.
Because they're in a state of pathos.
They're in a state of pathos.
But that's not an eternal state.
Fine, but they're not made saints. It's
But we're
it's
all
there.
in a state of pathos at some point in our life.
Yeah, those are the points at which you wouldn't be sainted
Yes.
because you're in a state of pathos.
we didn't saint Mother Teresa because of her state of pathos. We sainted her because of her state of Christ-like love.
Sure, but she, like, the reason why she was able to actualize that,
Fine.
the way that she
Yeah.
actualized that is because people are broken and suffering. and
Exactly.
in
Yeah,
need
they're
of
shitty people everywhere.
an
Yeah.
outpouring of
Yeah.
love and action.
Yes, but I'm never gonna saint those shitty people. You could still call that what it is.
They
Like,
would now. They would now.
Well, the
I'm
church
just saying. I
wouldn't,
think
but
I
yeah.
think this is running up on like a contemporary.
It is. Yeah,
issue.
like Saint George Floyd.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you're
Right.
noble because of your.
Yes,
You
yeah.
got hurt. Because you're a victim.
Yes, and I'm saying that is a wrong understanding.
Right. I mean, I
of it.
don't think that we should. Yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't argue that we should venerate people, like solely because they've been then.
Yes, we should.
oppressed or
We should.
hurt.
We should venerate the
But I
ones
just
who
I
live
have like a
Christ-like love.
problem with decrying or like I don't know, just like trying to think of a world that would be better if there weren't any suffering or if people weren't pathetic or
I'm not
people-
trying to think of a world that would be better. I'm simply saying what the actions are.
Mm-hmm.
Those who live sacrificially in a Christ-like love, they are living more fully human. Really, they're living more what it means to be human.
Right, because we
And-
talked about this.
yes.
You're made in the image.
Yes.
Well, I mean, in a Christian perspective, you're
Yeah,
made
yeah.
in the image of God, and that means giving yourself sacrificially
Yes,
to another
yes.
person.
But those who are receiving the sacrifice are not, and that's fine.
I don't know.
Because-
I mean,
because you-
like
you could
maybe
say-
not in the moment, but like
If they do it for somebody else, then they are.
right,
Yes,
yeah.
and that's what we're.
But that would. I mean, that's what I'm maybe getting hung up on is you're not going to be giving or loving in a Christ-like manner unless there's an object of that, which necessitates somebody being maybe not pathetic is the right word, but suffering or in need.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hey.
Yeah.
Is love per se the only way in which a person can be Christ-like?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say
Can you love without another person?
Then whom will you be loving? Yourself?
No, you're
That's a good.
like, I'm just
Right.
like asking questions to.
I'm saying a hermit can love himself, I guess. There were many hermits.
Like, is a person who lives forever
Catholic
alone.
saints. I think what was the one who translated many of the works?
Jerome?
Yeah, Jerome, who lived as a hermit, and
in translating works, you're doing it for other people.
well, he was mostly doing it for the good of the work itself. Like, even if nobody read it, he was doing it because it was exalting truth, which was exalting God. So I do think you can. It isn't, as long as you exist, there is acts of love in which you could do, even if the act of love is towards a transcendent. So you're just doing it for the
Okay,
good.
so yes.
So
There
yes,
doesn't
the
have to
answer is
necessarily
there
be
doesn't
another
have to be
human
another
Right, that doesn't have to
being.
necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but it has to be in a state of love. It has to be that which is a giving of oneself.
Literally
to,
willing the good
yeah, willing the good, exactly. Yeah, whatever that good may be.
towards
whether,
being or whatever.
Yes,
you know.
yeah. And I would say probably that's normally understood as the highest form of love.
Towards being.
Yeah, when it's
Doing
simply,
that which one ought do.
yes, directly related towards God rather than through another to God. And so most of us require the other in order to work towards God, but there are some saints that didn't even need that. It was all contemplative, and it was all just simply manifesting the state of being, which I would say normally was viewed as a higher form of love. And I do think as Christians that's what we're supposed to be called for, right? We're supposed to be called for this state of love, and if somebody is in a state of pathos in which somebody is able to love us, and then there has to be at least a reciprocity, you're giving back to the one who is loving you, or you're giving back towards somebody else who's also suffering.
So, to go back to the thing you were saying, that thing might be interesting. You were talking about Saint Teresa helping people who were old. Was she providing life-sustaining medical care to people, or was she easing people in their suffering?
It was mostly.
I think they were more easing people.
Yeah,
Because
easing
that
people.
I don't
They
think
had
you
a
have an
house-
issue with that
They
because
had a
don't,
house
right,
you
of
can do
dying or
that's
Right, they
when
did,
because
yeah.
much earlier you made the argument that it was the responsibility of those around the elderly and decaying to provide them the best end of life possible.
Exactly, yeah.
Which includes doing things to ease their suffering
Yes.
as they die.
Yeah. And
There's
I
no
think-
issue with that. Taking a
exactly,
pain
yeah.
medication that might make you hurt less as you're
Right,
dying
yes.
is different than taking this medication to sustain your heart function for
Exactly right. Yeah.
So
I think what I could conclude after talking about this is like, if you're giving someone a medication that eases their suffering and also happens to be keeping them alive, I don't have any issue with that. If you're giving them medication, they're miserable, they're getting worse, and I know you don't like the term, but they're suffering more.
why
but
do I
they're
not like
still-
suffering? What's that about?
Because I said it earlier, and you like.
Yeah.
were like,
Okay,
I
we'll have to
Yeah,
revisit
yeah.
that. But I don't
And I think Catholics care more about suffering than anybody.
I don't.
else.
I really don't think I had a reaction to it at all. I think
Okay, yeah.
I think I maybe said something that was interpretable as having a reaction. I really don't.
Yeah.
have it.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm sorry if I gave that impression. I promise. Continue.
Yeah, I don't have a
Yeah.
problem with that. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what does this have to do with inalienable rights?
I think normally people tend to have that problem because they think that people have the right to life, or they think that they have the.
So
that
it's
they ought
almost
to be
in sustaining someone's life past its natural end. You are protecting someone else's right.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we look at it as good. When we look at modern medicine, most people would say
I'm
it is
respecting their right by keeping them alive.
Exactly, yeah. And I think
But
that's
we're saying you don't have that right.
right, yeah. And most people have that reaction. And so when they hear me, they think I'm being a monster. I'm like, I'm not. Maybe I am being a monster. I don't know.
No.
So the respect that we do have for life, that comes from like a grasp of or a deep appreciation that it's a gift, not that it's.
I think
Ideally,
that,
yes.
Yeah, I think that's a kind
I
we
know that
need.
makes
We,
sense.
we should have, right? And so that should always
'Cause I feel like
encompass
it'd
qualitative.
it'd be kind of hollow or empty to just be like, well, we're only doing this because we can't kill you. Like, that's
Right,
the thing
yes,
about it,
yeah,
is
yeah.
We can't do this thing.
Yes,
Like,
yeah.
if everything's like understood in a negative way, as opposed to a,
Yes.
a positive,
Yeah.
this is a good thing, then that's kind of feels hollow.
I think those are the only rational, or I guess not, in a political sense, the only thing I think you can rationally defend as far as like laws and bestowing of rights go are
Yeah.
things you can't do.
Right.
Like you
yes.
really can only tell people what they can't do. You can't really make the argument
You're
on a
protecting
state
something
level.
there. right,
Yes,
yeah.
you're not. You can't say can't. You have to do this.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny. It's like the way that like libs kind of like string out the list of like what you're entitled to.
yeah.
right.
And,
yes.
like you hear it. It's pretty mainstream to hear like everyone's entitled to health care. Everyone has a right
Yes.
to health
Yes. Yeah.
And was it last week I was on Instagram and some celebrity was like, "You have a right to sexual pleasure and health." It's like it just keeps going on. Like,
it does. Yeah. and it really never ends.
you have a right to an O.
Yeah.
Ironically, she was selling like her celebrity brand of vibrators.
Oh, she. Oh,
so
okay. Yes.
it works for her.
No, but I do think that's where the natural logic falls into. And so, and I said it many times, I really do think that the left is more in tune with the intrinsic ethos of Americanism than the right. I think the right is actually very antithetical to the American ethos. The right many times want to conserve things.
That's not what it's about.
And that's not what the American ethos was ever about.
It's all about positive rights. It's all
Yes,
about things.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
That you have a right to life that we need to defend. They have a right pursuit of happiness. And so what does pursuit of happiness entail? Why wouldn't it entail orgasms? Right? Why wouldn't it entail healthcare?
Those are things that make me
Right.
happy.
Yes,
you know?
there's things that
Under
people
the
make.
penumbras and enumerations
Exactly,
of the right
yeah.
to pursuit of happiness.
Yes,
The pursuit of
why
orgasm.
wouldn't we?
Thomas Jefferson's like first draft.
Pursuit of climax.
But yeah, and so I think when the right kind of freaks out about it, it's like, well, you're actually being different. You're not really holding, the people on the right are not holding the actual authentic American ethos.
Yeah.
What they're holding is something very different. What they're trying to hold is some sense of tradition. I mean, when was the U.S. ever based on tradition?
No,
it was
never.
really like the fighting against tradition. It was fighting against the Catholic Church.
When did Locke
It was
write?
fighting against the Church of
Because
England.
it's all
It was
Lockean,
fighting-
isn't it?
It is, yeah.
When do you know when Locke was writing?
I think
he
17. I think 1700s, yeah. 16 or 17, somewhere around there.
I'm looking it up right now. I'm looking up his lifespan. His lifespan was 1632 to 1704. Their
Nice.
tradition
Yes.
was about 80 years old.
Yes, that's it. Yes. It was a rebellious state. The U.S. is a very rebellious nation.
Even if you wanted to bring, like, who,
Yeah.
who so Locke came after whom? Like, what's the tradition we're tracking? Do you
I
know?
think Hobbes came before Locke,
Hobbes would have been when?
around the same 1600s, and then there was David Hume.
Yeah, Hume. Was,
Hume, yeah,
Okay, so Hobbes lived, wow, he lived a long time. He
Did
lived to
he?
91,
nice,
1588 to 1679.
yeah. And then John Locke came before. I mean, Hume came before him.
Hume was, no, he was after.
He was after. Okay.
1711 to 1776. So
Okay,
he was
okay, yeah.
actually a contemporary.
A contemporary
Locke.
of Locke. Okay, yeah.
And then before Hobbes, when was Kant doing his thing?
Kant is very different, though.
I just
He
saying,
comes from the
just saying.
Germanic
I'm
world,
just like,
but yeah. I think it's
Descartes was writing in the 1500s,
yes, I know. Yeah.
so it's extremely recent.
it is.
This
Yes,
came
yeah.
about. The Protestant Reformation wasn't until like the early 1500s.
I
So
know.
like it
yes,
really,
yeah.
what was that?
And
200
then there was
years
like
before the
100 years
Revolution?
war before it became settled. And
I
so
know.
that,
So
the Protestant, with the Protestant religion.
So
was
imagine
essential
you
to
and I
1600s.
living today. We're born the same year. imagine Luther's ideas were settled in like 1920. And then we found a nation on that.
Exactly, yeah.
That's how recent
That's
this
essentially what it
was.
was, right, yeah.
Like, imagine we found a nation on like Heideggerian thought. It's the same
It is,
length
yes.
of time.
Yeah, exactly. Which some people probably would want to do.
But I just like
Yeah,
that's the
Heidegger was the
Is there a-
phenomenologist.
Yeah. During the Nazi regime,
Wait,
basically.
so interesting. I haven't
Because he was part of the Nazi party. but,
right. I haven't fully explored this, but there's like a big Catholic movement with phenomenology.
Right, yeah, and John Paul II was part of it.
Right,
Yeah.
Edith Stein, Saint Edith Stein
Yeah.
was a phenomenologist.
Yeah.
Do you think it's so we've recognized Heidegger on the show as an
Yes.
attempt to return to Aristotelian thought
Yes.
without admitting that God exists.
Yes, that's what it was essentially. Yeah,
Well, that God is
and so many Catholics got a hold of that because like Heidegger went to the seminary. He almost became a priest and everything. Like he understood all of that, but he left the seminary and he was trying to construct a philosophy that wasn't theological per se.
Right, because they were responding to what was it like the early psychological.
Yeah, and
movement.
existentialism and
Right,
all that
yeah.
stuff. So he was revolting against it, but he also, he was also revolting against the Lutheran ideas of like Nietzsche.
But wasn't he directly influenced by Nietzsche?
Not really, to be honest. He was only
Husserl was his
Yeah, Husserl was a phenomenologist. And so Germany was broken up between the Protestants and the Catholics.
Yeah.
And he came from, obviously, the Catholic area. Same thing with Husserl.
Right.
And then there was...
Should we cover Being in Time?
Schopenhauer.
I have a copy. Should we?
Yeah.
We didn't burn that. I had a copy of that.
Oh, we didn't? Okay,
Dang,
good.
we didn't burn that.
No,
No, I
no,
had I have a
that's
copy of Being
Heidegger.
in Time.
That's Heidegger.
We should have burned that.
Yeah, I know.
Dang.
Yeah. Yeah, and so there was many different ideas that were developing during that era, and he wanted to begin with being, which he called Dasein, and so it was which came from Meister Eckhart, who was a Catholic mystic, who came up with the notion of Dasein and the Godhead and everything before him, and so it was very influential for him, and it was very Catholic mystical. But he was trying to describe it in a different way. Mm-hmm. And I think ultimately it just failed miserably. And it probably pissed a lot of Heideggerians off there. But yeah, I think in the end his philosophy suffered miserably, and then he just wrote poetry because he himself recognized that
Heidegger?
he was going nowhere. Yeah.
Because
And
what
horrible
happened? So
poetry in that sense.
I don't remember
Have
exactly
you
what
read
the time.
much Stein?
Not too much, no.
I think she's good.
Yeah.
So Heidegger, Being in Time was. I don't remember what it is exactly. It was like supposed to be the first of 3 parts.
Yes.
And then he never finished it.
Finished it, yeah. He wrote poetry. And everybody agrees his poetry was horrible.
It's German.
Yes,
Yeah, that's hard.
Yes, yeah. And a lot of it is because he wanted to begin with the phenomena of being rather than begin with the ontology of being. And so if you read like most Thomistic ideas or scholastic ideas, they want to begin with the abstract notions of what it means to be. And Heidegger wanted to begin with what it means to be experientially, phenomenologically.
Right, yeah. That's, I mean, I think there's efficacy to that for sure.
I think there are.
I think it was trendy.
Yes.
I think it still is like it maybe was trendy, but it still seems
I think what
applicable.
What it does well is in terms of description.
Right.
It doesn't really do anything in terms of like prescriptive or philosophical ideas.
I don't know. I feel like you should, at least from what's worked for me, is like get the Thomistic and just kind of know what's going on. But like the theological side that like how do I act this out, or what is this? How does it look like for me?
But at that point, you're no longer being phenomenological. At that point, you're being more classical. And so what Heidegger was saying is that you cannot know being outside of the phenomenology. And so there isn't as if I'm going to know the transcendental nature of what it means to be. What he's saying is that what it means to be is to be in the world.
Is the
And
Right, because
experience
you're
of it.
basing
Yes.
your whole understanding off of what you can
experience.
experience,
Yes.
right?
And that's
And
antithetical.
I think that's
Yeah.
maybe it's not like the fullness of it, but in some respects, I find that to be useful.
I do think, and again, I do think that it is useful descriptively.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of his descriptions of what it means to be, I would say, is very philosophically rich,
Mm-hmm.
but it dies quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It dies quickly because he thinks that you could express being without comprehending being
Mm-hmm.
per se.
Mm-hmm.
You could only comprehend being there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, das Sein means to be there. And so, so he says that you could only comprehend being there. So what does it mean to be there? It means to be there present. So what does it mean to be there present? It means to be mit das Sein. It means to be there present with others.
yeah.
Right. And then so on and so forth. So it's like a building up of it. And then he says this is an opposition of das Nicht, which is the opposition of not being there. But he can never get to what it means to be. It is always in relation to with being.
Right.
It is to be in the world, is to be with others, is to be, das Man, which, you recognize the self from the man, you recognize yourself from the other. And when you recognize yourself from the other, you could only exist in the reflection of the other. And so it's a very... I think a lot of people think of it as complex and everything, and the reason why they think of it as complex is because it makes no sense in the end.
Phenomenology?
Phenomenology in general, in
So
the
my
end,
impression-
makes no actual logical sense.
My impression of being in time reading it, I think I only read half of it. And
Yeah.
I really comprehended almost none of it.
Yes, yeah.
After the first, I think he establishes his argument very well in the first 5-6 pages.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's just circuitous nonsense. But it's essentially a long string. It almost feels like a stream of consciousness.
Yes,
Where he's
yeah.
like, first to understand this, we must first understand this. But to understand this, we must first answer this question.
Yeah.
And to define this question, we must first understand this. And to understand this thing, we must first understand this. And to understand that, we have to answer this question. It's just like over and over and over. Like I remember
Yeah.
when it's early on, he goes into how a question is I don't know how he worded it, but it's like when you ask a question, it's comprised of a seeking, and then a seeking
Right,
is
yes.
this thing, and it's just like it just does nothing to establish any kind of actual
yeah.
premises.
Yeah.
It's just a circuitous web of
Yes, yeah.
like it's just, you know what I mean? It's just like a hierarchy of
yeah.
like answers, but it's constantly, it'll start to dip down low enough, I guess you
Yeah.
could say, like metaphorically speaking, like it'll get close enough to the defining being. You're
Yeah.
like, but before we do that, we have to do this.
Yes.
Like,
It's kind of like, if I'm going to analogize phenomenological arguments in general, let's say that you were born and only existed in this room, for your entire life. And then you try to describe what is outside of this room. It simply becomes nonsensical because all you'll be saying are relations to this room. And so you see only brick, and you see only white, and you see only these colors, and you only hear these sounds of these cars. And so then you start describing sound, right? And
yeah.
sound is
Yeah.
and that's the one thing you hear, and then you hear your parents' voices or whatever.
Yeah.
But then you get into this deep, very deep, I guess, analysis of what these sounds do. It goes low and high, and you get this very descriptive understanding of that phenomena of your experience. But in the end, you never describe how the room was built, where you are, what it is here for. You don't understand any of that. All you have is a very deep analysis of your experience of existing.
It's almost like
room.
phenomenology is like, I don't know if you would call it the end of Enlightenment thought, but it's like
It kind of is, I think, in the end, yeah.
That's kind of because that's what Enlightenment thought essentially asserted, that man can reason any is
what was the defining attribute of being, basically? Is that through man you understand true, the good, the beautiful, and phenomenology was kind of like that. It was the end of that. It was like, yes, we all understand it through being there, present in the world as man, and that's what Dasein in the end was.
Because how I describe phenomenology, I guess, in practical terms, is it's essentially theology for Marxists, because a lot of Marxists that I know really like Heidegger, and they'll reference Heidegger pretty accurately.
Yeah.
And my response is always to say, well, that argument would make sense if you discussed it in Thomistic terms, and it would also reach a conclusion, but they're not willing to do that because it's actually theological.
Yes, yeah.
It's almost like kind of the existentialist / and I don't want to say existentialist broadly because there were a lot of Christian existentialists, but like the Marxist hatred of theology is manifest in phenomenology. Maybe not as much, but like it's at least in its arguments also present.
Yes, yeah.
And they resonate with it because it's close enough to like Aristotle. He uses a lot of Aristotelian language.
Yes.
It's like close enough to Aristotle to be satisfying to the intellect, but it's not like all the way.
Yes, yeah.
If that makes sense?
Yeah,
because I know a lot of Marxists that quote Heidegger all the time, and it's like you're like 80% there, and
because there is something there, and I think there's something that people recognize as true that they don't get with people like Nietzsche, they don't get with people like Feuerbach, and many of.
I think it's because it's more technical.
It is. It's more technical, and I do think the descriptions tend to be very accurate in terms
I have to
of
pee really bad, so
of our experience.
Entertain yourself.
Yes, yeah.
We're at 11 p.m.
Okay.
It's getting real late.
It is, yeah.
Do you want to be done soon?
Yeah.
You have to work tomorrow?
Yeah, I do have to work. Do you have to work? Do you have to work?
No.
You don't have to work.
Yeah, I always have to work.
I have to work.
Yeah.
So should I wait to pee? Are we done now, or
Sure,
do I?
we could end now if you want.
You sure?
Yeah.
We didn't talk about nationalism. What?
Oh yeah.
Do we need to talk about nationalism?
We can talk about nationalism when I bring food next week.
Okay, Anne Marie's done. So this has been good. We only hit it. We hit an hour 20. We hit an hour 20. We started 2 hours late, but we still hit over an hour 20. So I think that's pretty
really good.
This was pretty rich. I think this was good.
It was, yeah.
We hit the Heidegger thing. People wanted us to talk about Heidegger for a while, so I think.
Oh, really? Okay.
I should read part of Being in Time again. I don't want to read the whole thing. It's really not worth it.
Yeah. Now, I could talk more about Heidegger next time, even, because I read.
Well, we're talking to Trans Regret Snoopy about the nature of God.
Okay, good. Yeah.
So we have a specific topic. We're going to talk to Trans Regret Snoopy about ways in which you can know God.
Yes.
Knowing God and what that means.
Okay.
Technical.
Yeah.
Oh, also, I think Trans Regret Snoopy wants to have me on. Trans Regret Snoopy Presents the Bible sometime to talk about the Apocrypha.
Tobit? Oh, okay.
Something in there.
Oh, okay.
It'd be very interesting.
By Apocrypha, you mean like what Luther called the Apocrypha? Okay.
Yeah. It's not the Apocrypha.
Yeah.
The capital T, capital A Apocrypha, TM.
Yes. Okay.
Anyway, we can be done.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.